Hi everyone, my name's Holly Formosa and I am the founder of CommsClass, which is a blog that helps hospitality, tourism and food businesses with PR and marketing. If you don't know me, I used to work at Melbourne Food and Wine Festival as the PR manager. I've also worked at hospitality marketing agencies. So this is my bread and butter. It's what I do every day. And I thought that instead of writing a blog today, I would do a webinar instead. Give that a go. So today's webinar is called Mastering Your Media List. And it's really to help small businesses find the priority journalists for their businesses and to create a really effective media list. And then in the next session, what I'm going to teach is how to make approaches to media in a really personalised and effective way. So without further ado, we'll get started. What you'll need for this session is just a pen and paper and access to the internet, and it will take about 15 minutes. So in terms of the approach for compiling a media list, my theory is to do less but do it more effectively. So I know that I can't physically email 100 journalists in a day, and if I did, the results would probably be quite unsatisfactory, and I would have to do a bit of a copy-paste template job, and it would be quite not very personal and would probably piss a lot of the journalists off. So unfortunately, broadcasting a media release out is the way that a lot of PR pros do conduct their media relations, but it's not the way that I'm going to teach you today. The way I'm going to teach you today is to find the top 20 and then make personalized approaches. So let's get started. I've got a criteria here. The 4 criteria that I look at when I'm putting a journalist on my media list is the topic relevance. So making sure that they're actually interested in the topic, that they rank for keywords that I need, that my website needs to rank for, that they have a good and healthy domain authority, and that they also speak to my brand's target audience. So we'll dive into those now and we'll start compiling a list. So the first thing we're going to do is first do some research based on keywords. So most of you as business owners or marketing or comms professionals will have a fairly good idea of what your keywords are. Generally, they are the product or service combined with the location. So for example, if I'm a restaurant in Melbourne, my keywords are probably going to be things like restaurant, menu, Melbourne, CBD. If I'm making a local gin, say down on the coast of Mornington, my keywords are most likely going to be gin or artisan gin Mornington or Mornington Peninsula gin. So you get the idea. But what you can do is speak to your website developer, who should have a really good idea of what your keywords are. And the other thing you can do is use the Google AdWords tool, which is fantastic. What I'll do is I'll leave a link to this on the blog so that you can have a look. But basically what it allows you to do is drop in your URL of your business, and then it shows you the search terms that people use to find your website, which is super handy. So as an example, I'm going to show you the keywords for Sati Restaurant, which is a restaurant I used to work for many, many moons ago. So I'm going to drop in the URL to my keyword planner, press get started, and let's see what comes up. So there's no right or wrong combination, but it'll just give us a good idea of what's driving the traffic to our site. So here we can see restaurants with the lunch specials, dining in Melbourne City, good restaurants Melbourne, Melbourne restaurant guide. So I'm going to choose some words which are low in competition but driving high monthly searches. So let's have a look. This looks pretty good. So good restaurants Melbourne. Okay, that is a really good start. So let's use that as an example, and I will show you. So now what I'm going to do, bring up a new window. I'm going to type in, what was the term? Good restaurants Melbourne. Okay. Good Restaurants, Melbourne. Okay, so this is the regular Google homepage. What this does is brings up restaurant websites as well. But because we're interested in news outlets and journalists, I'm actually going to go filter my results. And if you look at the top of the page, you'll see there's a little section here for news. So I'm going to click on that news tab, and that's going to bring up all the news outlets which rank for these keywords. So you can see here we've got already a really relevant and targeted list of outlets. So Good Food, Gourmet Traveller Magazine, Herald Sun, The Australian, The Weekly Review. These are all fantastic outlets to start with. So let's just click on the first one here. Good Foods Melbourne Restaurant Hit List for 2018. All right, so written by Jemima. Okay, so what we're going to do is start a little list here. Now, I want to reiterate that I don't want you contacting any of the media that you find online throughout this process yet, because the next session is about how to do that. This is just about creating the list. One recommendation I have is to always copy and paste the name of the journalist so that you don't misspell it, because that can be quite terrible. All right, so I'm going to paste that in, Jemima. And so apart from a column for the name, we're also going to put in the outlet. And then I like to also put a note of what their story was on. So this one was a roundup for, it was on the guide, wasn't it? Let's just triple check. Restaurant hit list for 2018. Is this from the guide? I'm just going to put in here 2018 restaurant hit list. Okay, cool. So that's a good example if you're a restaurant. Say you are launching a food product, or let's go even more diverse than that. Let's say you are doing surfing tours. You're a tourism operator and you're based down in Torquay, for example. Sticking with something that I'm familiar with. So we're going to type in surf tours Torquay. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the news section of Google so that we can get rid of any corporate or branded websites. And I'm going to have a look at who's writing about surf tours in Torquay. Okay, so the inertia.com, Geelong Advertiser, Daily Mail, ABC Online. All right, so let's go to the Geelong Advertiser. Okay. Oh no, I need to subscribe. Sorry, Geelong Eddie, I will do that. All right, let's go to the inertia. What's this? The inertia, cool. All right, so this is a surfing website, so very relevant. So who wrote this? Okay, so Alexander Haro. So what we're going to do is do the same thing, go back to our spreadsheet and put in the name of the writer or the journalist. And the name of the outlet. So this is the inertia. Okay. And again, I'm just going to write a little bit of information about what this article was about. So this is an international article which is promoting a tour to Bells Beach with Mick Fanning as a spokesperson. Cool, okay. So I'm going to put here on my spreadsheet reader promotion or reader competition. Okay. Now, obviously, you wouldn't be having a mix of surfing and food media, but I just wanted to give you an example of how it works for any industry that you work across. All right, so what you're going to do is find your keywords, and I want you to spend some time over the next week or two just finding the right journalists who write about your topic and who rank for your keywords. So 15 to 20 is a really good number. Okay, after you've got that list together, what we're then going to do is make sure that they all meet criteria. Because as I said, it's about being very specific and targeted. So let's go back to this. So we've looked for keywords, topic relevance. So we're going to make sure, once we've got our list, that all of the journalists who we have noted in our spreadsheet are actually interested in our topic. So this is just the due diligence. If I'm launching a hospitality venue, I'm not going to pitch an idea to, for example, a fashion writer. And it sounds very straightforward, but you would be surprised how many people do that. It's bizarre. Okay, so that is the second stage, so making sure that the writer is genuinely interested in the topic. Now, I know for a fact that Jemima is interested in food and restaurants, so that doesn't bother me. Making sure that Alexander Haro does actually write about surfing. That is a good thing to check. So let's have a look. Surf, okay. Well, his article was under a section called surf, so I'm not worried about that either. Okay. Domain authority. Okay, so we've got the list of journos who are ranking for our keywords. We know that they're interested in our topic. The third thing that you need to check is the domain authority of the website. So what we want to do is achieve publicity on websites that have a better reputation with Google than our own. Because what happens is when you achieve a publicity article on a site, something high ranking like news.com.au, Google looks at that and says, wow, they're linking to this website or to this brand, and it actually gives your site more credibility. So again, what I'm going to do in the blog is give you a little link to this, to all of the tools you need, but this is called the Moz tool. And it's really simple. You can download it for free. I'm just showing you here. I've already got mine added to Chrome, and then what it does is it shows you the domain authority of how you rank compared to other websites. So what we're going to do is have a look at, again, using Sati Restaurant as an example. All right, the domain authority for Sati Restaurant. I'm going to turn my toolbar on here. You can see it pops up in the top right. Just waiting for that to load. Okay, so the domain authority for Sati Restaurant is 34. And you can see I'm circling with my cursor there. It just comes up in the search bar underneath. Okay, so what I want to do is make sure that all of the outlets that are on my list have a higher domain authority than 34. It means what it's really doing is getting rid of any of the riffraff for news websites or even potentially blogs that aren't credible with Google. We want to make sure that we're working with really credible outlets. Okay, so let's have a look at what Good Foods ranking is. Okay, so again, I'm just going to Good Food. Let's just do a Google and see. Okay, turning on my Moz toolbar. Okay. Moz is a little bit temperamental, so I'm just, okay, clicking it on. Sometimes it takes a little while to pull the data. Okay, so Up in my little Moz toolbar, it's telling me that good food has a domain authority of 67. So that's great. That's almost 30 points higher than the domain authority of Sati. So that means that if I was doing the PR for Sati, I'm going to put in here good food domain authority of 67, and I'm going to now check all of the outlets on my list, so the 20 I've chosen, and I'm going to put in the domain authority in a column, noting, and then so it might be 67 or 57 or whatever it might be. And what I've indirectly done by doing that is I've given myself a way to prioritize my list, because researching an angle and coming up with an idea to work with a journalist takes time, smarts, and a lot of research. So if you can actually prioritize your approaches, that's going to be really helpful for getting effective results. Okay, so, and don't worry too much about the domain authority tool and what that means and being a bit intimidated. It's really not that scary. And as I continue with these webinars, we will get more into it. But right now, I'm just teaching you how to create a list. Okay, so the last criteria that we want to look at when we're developing a media list is the target audience. So if I achieve a piece of publicity in an outlet, but the audience that reads that outlet isn't interested in my product, it's really not worth anything. So again, I'm just trying to get you to be very strategic in the way you come up with your media list. And a good example might be, okay, if I'm, I might be lucky enough to achieve a piece of publicity in a US-based Chicago food magazine, for example, for my restaurant. Unless I'm actually actively targeting tourists as an organisation, what really is the value of that to my business? It's great to have an online hit or an online listing, but I think that it's really important to prioritize your approaches based on the outlets that your customers are reading. So the way that you can find out who the customers are is by downloading a media kit. And I'm just going to give you an example. Most restaurants or food products would have Australian Gourmet Traveller as a high priority on their target list. And I know just by doing a lot of research on keywords. So I'm going to show you the media kit for Gourmet Traveller. So it's really easy. All you do is type in the outlet into Google that you have as a target, and then type in media kit. Most of them should have a media kit online because they use it to sell advertising space to advertisers. All right, so Gourmet Traveller, here we are. So this will give you all of the information you need about who the readers are, which is really helpful. So fantastic. It's telling us here that GT has 176,000 print readers and a social community size of 730,000. What I'm really interested in is to see where they live, how much they earn, and who they are. Okay, so we know, so you can see here it's telling us that the average reader is aged between 50 and 64. It's telling us that they spend $180 average weekly on groceries. And where are they living? Does it give us a little breakdown of where they live? I'm sure it does, but perhaps I just can't see it right here. So as a restaurant owner, if I was looking at this, I think that the Gourmet Traveller audience is obviously really relevant for me, because the people who read it are interested in food, they earn a great wage, and they're a little bit older. They can afford to go out for dinner. They're not stuck at home with kids. So for me, this ticks the box. And again, this is another criteria that I can say, yes, Gourmet Traveller is a high priority media outlet. Okay, so basically, those are the 4 criteria. So after you've checked these off, you're going to have a short but effective list that contains outlets which rank for your keywords, and then you've done the due diligence to make sure that all of the journalists that you've targeted are interested in your topic. You've also made sure that the websites that they write for a highly ranking and reputable. And the last thing that you've done is had a look at the target audiences to make sure that there'll be a return on investment, or that the audience is likely to actually convert. So they're likely to read the story and visit your website or make a reservation or buy the product. Okay. So you must be thinking, but what about all of the other media that I deal with? All the media as a group are very, very important, and it's still critical that you help and service anyone else who inquires. So my recommendation for brands is to have a really, really well-organized media center on the website. I've been told by some journalists that having a Dropbox directory of imagery can be really helpful. And what you can then do is, if they come to you and they say, look, I'm interested in covering a recipe or a story, you've got a fantastic resource center where you can point them to, and it enables them to cover the story very quickly. I guess what we're trying to do with this webinar is help you come up with a very effective, highly targeted and prioritized list, which will then allow you to make personalized approaches to the media instead of sending out a broadcast media release. And that's where we're trying to get to. And that's what we're going to cover in the next session. So if you have any questions about developing a media list, please don't hesitate to send me a message. I'm very responsive. I'll put a form in the bottom of this blog, so you can write me a private message, or you can leave a comment on our Facebook page or Instagram page. And what I will do is post this on the blog and then also send it out in the CommsClass newsletter. So as long as you're subscribed, you will receive the next webinar, which will be on how to curate a media angle for each of the identified media and how to pitch the idea out. So yeah, thanks again for listening in, everyone. I hope that wasn't too painful at my first webinar. If I get a few hits on it, we'll go again. And just a big thank you to the CommsClass community, who are so committed and helpful and supportive of my blog. It's really appreciated. So I will be in touch soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.